The privilege of play. Why the world's game is a white game in the United States. Is it white? It is. It's actually all colors. But there is opportunities being denied. I agree. But Henry Bushnell takes it a little extreme, and we're going to talk about those extremes and hopefully come up with solutions. It's kind of like why my podcast exists. I want to point things out. At the same time, I want to admit my wrongs. I say so many stupid things, and I'm wrong all the time. But that's okay. It reads, The Privilege of Play is a Yahoo Sports series examining the barriers minority group face in reaching elite levels of competition in swimming, race car driving, soccer, and hockey. And what? Swimming, race car driving, and hockey? They're actually lumping that in with soccer? Like, we need more racism. We got to find it. I can't find it. Well, we can find it in swimming, race car driving, and hockey. We can find it there. That is overreach. Are you kidding? Race car driving, that's in the inner cities. They're all freaking out, kicking and screaming. They cannot go the next level of race car driving. That is ridiculous. Hockey, go to Canada. Swimming, we win gold medals. We're fine in that situation. I observe this through a different lens of we need to win. If we were winning World Cups on the men's side, with all white people, I'm fine with it because we just need to win. We can't win, and the talent does exist, and that's why we're talking about this. Within soccer, there's kids in the inner city that actually play the game of soccer. I see it all the time, and they are being denied opportunity because of the way we structure things. Clearly, that's a problem, but swimming, race car driving, and shut the freak up. Overreach there, Yahoo Sports. Let's read. This story is about opportunity. It begins in Columbia Heights, a gentrifying neighborhood in Washington, D.C., where elite soccer opportunities barely exist. But several years ago, on a lively field behind a public charter school, Precious Agu clearly deserved one. She glided past helpless middle schoolers that afternoon, unaware of where the sport she loved could take her. She didn't know much about high-level youth soccer, didn't know how to progress beyond after-school games. Fortunately, an onlooker did. Amir Lowry. What a creeper. Just kidding. Executive director of the Open Goal Project connected her with a travel program. Precious, the black daughter of a Nigerian mother, showed up to try out, and she remembers being shocked. She'd grown up surrounded by people of all hues, including many who looked like her. Soccer, she soon find, looked different. It was pretty much all white girls, she said. Soccer, in its purest form, is the most accessible and racially diverse team sport in the world. But American soccer, as Precious realized, is not. It's disproportionately white and upper middle class. Doug Andreessen, the former chair of U.S. Soccer Diversity Task Force. I love these task force. I was on a task force, and I did this on my task force. So the task force actually meets with the committee, and the committee meets, and then they together like, hey, we got a problem. Oh, you got a problem? Yeah, we have a problem. I noticed that there's not opportunities for the inner city kids. Oh, make a task force. Get out. So he made a task force. He went, he looked. Yep, we have a problem. Came back. Yeah, we have a problem. We verified it. Here's some pictures of and some data of what's going on, and we don't have it. Oh, good job. Good job on your task force. Brush it under the table and move on. That's what they do. Task force. We're going to do a task force and study just solve the freaking problem. Make a decision to solve the problem, but they don't do that. They create task force. Reading on. He looked around a country home to tens of millions of non-white people. Then he looked around soccer boardrooms and out onto fields and wondered, why doesn't soccer in America look like America? The superficial answer is obvious. Participation in most cases require money. Soccer diversity problem at its core is a social economic problem. And in America, after centuries of racial oppression, of slavery, Jim Crow laws, redlining, ongoing mass incarceration, and so much more socioeconomic problems are race problems. Jeez. So here we go. What sells right now is race, diversity, just all these trigger words are about to pop up our way. So where we hit slavery, Jim Jim Crow laws, which is Democrat. Oh, no, they switch, whatever. Okay. Ongoing mass incarceration is a problem, and that is actually done through legislation. Why is everyone up in an uproar over everything that CNN reports versus being an uproar of what the government actually mandates and sets legislation to make life miserable for a lot of people in this country? We're going after the wrong people. I'm telling you, we're fighting amongst ourselves when it's the government. But I read on. In 2017, the median non-Hispanic white household owned $171,700 in net wealth. The median black household owned $9,567. White America controls soccer just as it controls so much else. But the full answer is more complex. You think it's way more complicated than just saying, oh, they're just white people playing. Well, I'll discuss that later, but it's rooted in a uniquely American youth sports industry built around economic and social capital. The industry fuels a sprawling soccer network that includes minorities and perpetuates the power of those white men in charge. It's because the white people. This, Lowry says, is systemic racism in soccer. So already we talked about systemic racism because that's what they tell you to say, so you're going to say it. They talked about slavery, Jim Crow laws. These are all the things that they tell you to say. The way the model is right now, the consumer seeks out soccer and buys it, says Ed Foster Simeon, CEO of the U.S. Soccer Foundation. I wonder how much he makes. And consumers who can afford it, the ones with generational wealth and disposable income, are largely white. Oh my gosh. You can't make it if your skin's not white because you don't have the privileges they do. And only way you can have their wonderful privileges is you have to get it from them. You are beneath them, not stupid. I mean, you imagine hearing that as a kid. I can't make it. I'm not white. Freaking A. So they put this little graph together, little stats they found. Blacks and Latinx representation in U.S. soccer. I didn't know Latinx was a thing, so I'm going to say Latino. How about we just say non-white representation in U.S. soccer? Goes 88% white people own majority of Major League Soccer and coach clubs and stuff, and only 5% are black and 7% are Latinx. And then in the National Women's Soccer League, 99% are white. Oh my gosh. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We got to get rid of all the rich people to, stop starting things because of color. That is so. How about just, are they good people? Nah, not going to do that. Reading on, cost first and foremost is the sturdiest barrier that can make soccer inaccessible. Registration fees at many top youth soccer clubs are 4 figures. They're also merely a fraction of the necessary investment. Uniform tournaments, equipment, transportation, camps, and specialized trainers like the ACL prevention people all comprise what Lowry calls the hidden soccer economy. Some parents report paying 5 figures annually. A 2019 Aspen Institute study found that youth soccer participation costs more on average than youth tackle football participation and more than twice as much as youth flag football participation because no one plays youth flag football. Oh my gosh. Why are we comparing that? Why don't you compare it to basketball and volleyball and some other things? So, whatever. Oh, where's our race car driving? And swimming. They're all over the place, this Yahoo Sports. I don't trust any studies of any kind because all we get is misinformation. It's bullcrap. Reading on, for many black families who on average make $26,416 less than the non-Hispanic white families, those prices can be prohibitive. Oh my gosh, freaking white people. There's so much untapped potential in these communities, which I agree, but if it costs $1,500 to $2,000 a year for a 12-year-old to play soccer, well, that's just not feasible for a large number of people, says Brandon Miller, a goalkeeper for the United Soccer League's Charlotte Independents, who co-founded the USL Black Players Alliance. Yeah, I can't afford those things. My son plays at Tuzos. Very talented team, all Hispanic because they play. I go where the culture is, and the culture of soccer is in the Hispanic community. That's why I reside there, and it's inexpensive. I wouldn't pay for MLS Next or whatever. Oh, wait, MLS Next is free. Not everywhere, buddy. Not everywhere. Plus, you might have to play in the second tier to advance that way and be developed to get to that point. I read on. Add Hugh Roberts, a Charlotte defender and fellow co-founder. If you don't have any money from the start as a youth, then your opportunities are slim to none. Not true. There's ways. If you love the game, go play it. You can play in your neighborhoods. Go play for a Hispanic team. Play where it's inexpensive, and know that your development is on you. You need to develop yourself at home. Parents need to be more involved. They need to put their child in a situation that they can play the game on multiple teams. And there's so many different ways you can get it done. So if you're hurting on money, if your kid's good at the game of soccer, all you have to do is showcase that by guest play. If you guest play, it's free, typically. And the older you get, the more numbers they're missing. So for them to have their 10 to 12 kids that are paying for that elite team, they're hurting on numbers because a lot of kids quit when they get in high school. They can guest play for free because they want to keep the team alive so they don't lose all their numbers. There's a way of doing it, but we do have a problem. Let's read on. But scholarships are not the answer, Andreessen says. Others agree. Former U.S. soccer president Sunil Gulati points out that some clubs essentially subsidize scholarships by charging more in younger age groups. It's a taxation of a broad base, he explains, and while it chips away at one barrier, it neglects many others. I agree. But they're running their business how they want to run their business. And it is a business. Soccer is a huge business. Now, the soccer can run how it's running because there's always going to be people with money that want to pay for higher level coaching and those experiences. But U.S. Soccer can step in and start identifying talent early and provide a pathway. Instead of paying your CEO and all your fake positions you guys keep creating, and that's what happens when U.S. Soccer gets more money, and they become just so bloated, they're like, let's get more administrators. That's kind of like how our schools run. Vote for raises and teachers' pay, and then we vote for it, and then somehow the administrators, there becomes more. And the classroom teachers are still making the same. It's BS. We do have a problem. We need to get rid of administrators and put it more to the people and coaches actually doing it right. It's not that hard to figure out, but it has to start somewhere. You got to do something different. I don't know if they'll ever do it that way. Soccer is geographically inaccessible. The parents who could pay live in suburbs. The industry, therefore, grew in suburbia. And for talented teens like Precious Agu, that's problematic. The nearest elite club is 45 minutes away. Practice begins at 8:30 p.m. on weekdays. Her single mother works nights and doesn't drive. No teammates live nearby. The pipeline isn't just economically inaccessible, it's geographically inaccessible as well. Yahoo Sports analyzed the location of 161 elite youth clubs that comprise youth soccer development academies. In 2010, the average median household income of the zip codes in which those 161 clubs are based was $80,950, more than $30,000 above the national-wide median at that time, and the equivalent of around $96,400 today because the economy got better under Trump. Just kidding. We're getting crushed right now. Some of the best American soccer players ever grew up hours away from the club that offer them to and fro. But for every parent that could, there were many that can't. I couldn't. I still made it because of my white privilege. Time is a resource. Schedule flexibility is an offshoot of socioeconomic class. I think about when I was the president of a Virginia youth club in the 90s. Foster Simeon says, parents who volunteered were white-collar workers who could say to their boss, I'm leaving early on Tuesday and Thursday because I'm coaching my kids' team. If you're an hourly wage worker, you don't have that kind of flexibility. Oh, why not? You can't get creative and say, hey, I have to coach Tuesday, Thursday. I got to leave an hour early. Can I come in an hour earlier in the day so I can leave earlier? You could do that. So we're reaching for any way to just paint this picture. There's just racism and we're all underprivileged and everyone is in a horrible situation and America's racist. We are in the greatest country in the world and we're destroying it day by day, and it's sad to watch. I read on. For Precious, the only solution is Uber. Open Goal, a nonprofit aiming to bring soccer to underserved communities, fund her travels. Many kids without similar supports simply can't play. These are the invisible barriers that have taken too long for us to recognize and address. Foster Simeon says, there are structures and historical barriers to participation. Of course. There's always that. I was a big volleyball guy. I love volleyball. And I became a really, really good volleyball. If they had a 6 foot and below AVP, I would have been on it. I was that good. And I learned from other players. I played with a lot of the girls that played volleyball at Shadow Mountain High School. Shoni Hodges and company, who went on Division I and played in the AVP. I learned on my own. I was denied the ability to play volleyball because of Title IX. Can't have it. And Brophy did. And they were a rich high school, private high school, and they had it. That wasn't fair, and I was denied. But I'm white. So, whatever. Who cares? I have my privilege. I'm good to go. Reading on. They largely affect poor families in the inner cities, and poor families in the inner cities are disproportionately families of color, of course. But we don't care about the white poor people. They can go to hell, right? Black people are underrepresented in 132 of the 161 zip codes housing academy clubs. Those who do grow up in suburbs like U.S. Women's National Team star Crystal Dunn are often the only black players on youth teams. Those raised in cities often aren't able to latch onto the game. If I had stayed actually in the city, Dunn said on a recent panel, there's a good chance I wouldn't even be playing this sport. Cultural barriers. I felt like I just didn't fit in. So this is where I get frustrated with the article because there's suffrage going on, and if you suffer, you can't make it. Not true. You need to suffer or you can't become great. Precious sometimes returns home from practice after 11 p.m. with homework still to do. She wakes up the next morning before 7 a.m. She still maintains straight A's, and she's excelling on the soccer pitch. Division I colleges have been in touch. She initially worried she couldn't compete with the suburban girls, then quickly realized she's absolutely could. So they paint she had to do all these things. She had to stay up late and has straight A's still. How about she's phenomenon. She's a phenomenon. She's able to do these things. She's strong. What a great example is she's going to be for her brothers and sisters, her future children, to tell these stories of how great she is. And you can make it regardless of all the stuff you have to go through. That's the mentality we need in this country. You don't need this, she had to do this. We need to make sure that never happens again. That is stupid. Fight through it. Fight through it. Reading on. But along the way, she encountered another type of barrier. On the field, she adapted quickly. She wondered, how am I going to make friends? Most of her new teammates went to private schools. They were nice, but talked about private school things, about lake houses, fancy restaurants. I would be scared to approach any of them or try to start a conversation, Precious says. I didn't really know how, what are we going to talk about? At first, I was kind of uncomfortable because I felt like an outcast in some way. I felt like I just didn't fit in. This, to Foster Simeon, is the overlooked puzzle piece. You're an idiot, Foster Simeon. Well, I'm going to finish what he says, and then I'm going to call him an idiot again. You can create a great opportunity for a kid in middle-class suburban club, he says, but if you've not spent any time thinking about what that means to that child culturally, coming from a community where they don't have many resources, then the child can struggle. They experience microaggressions. There's another one. We got systemic racism. We got microaggressions. We have the Jim Crow laws. We have all the things that we need to hear over and over and over again so we can hate the white people because of those microaggressions. They can't partake in conversations about iPads and exotic vacation spots. Elite clubs in this sense can be culturally inaccessible too. Okay. It is okay not to have these things. It is okay to have a friend that has those things. It's okay. Everyone suffers. The thing is, we're only describing one kind of suffrage. We're only describing, poor and the microaggressions and all these things that just make me feel like I'm less. Bull. We do not, as a human race, think this way. We are taught to think this way from these stupid, moronic Yahoo Sports writers that are so lazy and have no thought process of what the real world is. I have suffered in that. Yeah, I came from a poor neighborhood. I had a mother and father that worked, in between jobs. My father was a construction worker. Half time he was in Vegas, and we went through, in the 80s, it was horrible with the recession. And we didn't have anything. And there was me and 3 other brothers. So the 4 boys and my mom, basically. My dad was always out of town working. We didn't have anything. I was so embarrassed as a kid when my mom would drop me off in the station wagon to school or something like that because we had station wagon. It was embarrassing. And I felt like the Karate Kid, when his mother helped picked up his girlfriend in the station wagon and stuff like that and had to drop him off at the dance because he didn't have a car. The Karate Kid went through this too. So, one more thing. I had the opportunity to be served as well, not by government, not by Yahoo Sports, is trying to create, anger amongst people and try to find a way to financially make sure everyone feels okay. But I'm white, so I have the privilege. No, I was the top track runner in middle school at Shea Middle School. And I didn't have the nice shoes or anything like that. I ran on, regular tennis shoes. And then my mother decided that she was going to get me track shoes. And these were like expensive track shoes. They're like $50, $60. And that was a lot. That's a lot today for a lot of people. I got them. First day I used them. Won. And then I left my track shoes on the bus. And then I told my mom. She was so upset. We, had the bus people look for them. Couldn't find them. Don't know why they couldn't find them, but they were gone or stolen or whatever. So I lost my track shoes after one day. And I told my mom, don't worry about it. I'll just run barefoot. I'm fine. So I think I did one meet barefooted. But then, it got around that I lost my shoes at church. And there was a family at my church, brother and sister McGrath. They actually came to my home and took me to the store. They did it without my mom knowing and went to the shoe store, and they got me these really nice track shoes so I could have track shoes. And, I was so thankful. I was so thankful for that kind of service that I was able. It touched me so much that I would never forget, and will never forget that 3 years ago, and this is after 30 years have gone by. No, 35 years have gone by. And I go to their house with my 2 sons, and I had for whatever, I felt like I had to thank them. And so I met with them, and I was just bawling like a little baby, just saying, thank you so much for what you did to me, or for me and my family, for getting me those track shoes at the time when we couldn't afford them. And, they were like taken back, and that it was that much of a impact in my life. And I always talk about it because it was service from my community. It wasn't a service from the government. When the government does something, like gives you things, it's not worth anything. It means nothing. It's garbage. No one gave it to you. When a community member does it, it's different. It's much different. So I suffered, and it's okay that I suffered. We could put that in Yahoo Sports. If I was the right color, we could talk about that or whatever. And it would be a sad story. And we probably can manufacture and make it sound worse, but it's okay. Everybody suffers. Even the poor white people, even the rich white people, everybody suffers. They just suffer differently. And I don't like how we're painting in this whole black versus white, white versus non-white stuff. It's not good. It's horrible. So there's Precious. She does look like an athlete, and those are some nice Nikes she's wearing. She's being helped out quite a bit, which is good. The community is helping her. That's good. So I read on. Especially players of color say, because many white coaches don't understand this cultural divide, they can't understand poverty and the mental challenges that accompany it. Maybe for some, but I think a lot of people can. Jeez. Roberts, the USL defender, grew up with black and Latino teammates. He remembers a coach benching a few because of their attitude, but he's not understanding that my friends are struggling at home because they're not getting enough food, Roberts says. They're frustrated with school and stuff, and yes, we take it on the field, but it's never us respecting the coach, but sometimes coaches just don't understand us because they're not us. So are you excusing bad behavior? It needs to be dealt with. That's a coach's job. It's like, oh, we're the only ones suffering. We didn't eat or something like that. You know what? It's okay not to eat. You should fast more anyways. I'm a big fast proponent. I send my kid to school all the time with no breakfast. My wife gets all upset. I'm like, he didn't want it. He's not getting it. And I never make it for him. Make it himself. Deal with it. But that's me. So barriers beget more barriers and keep one another in place. A predominantly white system produced overwhelming white leaders. A recent FAIR report found that across Major League Soccer, out of 229 head coaches, assistant coaches, majority owners, and top club executives, 7.4% are black, 5% are Latinx, and 87.6% are white. In the National Women's Soccer League, the corresponding numbers are 0%, 1.1%, and 98.9%. The report's authors called the findings alarming. Black Player Coalition have formed in MLS and the USL too, among many other things, correct the imbalance. How are you going to correct the imbalance? You're not. It shouldn't be done this way. It should be whoever's better. That is it. Stop giving things away. You can't force this. This is ridiculous. Got it. Whatever. You can't just do it now because apparently the whites run all the youth soccer. You can't just suddenly just start balancing things out when they're unbalanced in the beginning. This is frustrating. The amount of hate and, this whole, I find it ridiculous. So based on this article, I'm screwed. I should keep my job where I'm at long as possible because getting another job being white, I'm screwed because they want to balance it in some strange way through the numbers that benefit them versus how about the best. That's why coaches get fired. They lose. You get fired. It's freaking ridiculous. Representation is often valued for its inspirational faculties, and with good reason, humans gravitate towards role models who look like themselves. I played basketball growing up, and my friends played other sports, Robert says. Subconsciously, you don't even give soccer the attention because there's no people who look like you. Not true in Phoenix. We got plenty of, the people play. It's just the advancement and which clubs you're allowed to be on because of financial restraints. And soccer shouldn't be costing that. There is a solve to all this. If we just had true competition and just had one state championship, one regional championship, and one national title winner, and that's it, and just had it that way, and it was built on that, everyone would recruit and create the best teams in their community to compete in that, kind of like baseball with their Little League World Series. We need stuff like that. That'll solve it, competition. But we ruin it because U.S. Soccer sets up this whole pay-to-play system that the only way you can get it is this way versus setting up ODP for its real purpose, which is identifying talent, which it doesn't. It's a fundraiser, but that's another story. Reading on, the people that are making the power decisions, Miller says, don't have diverse views and therefore don't make diverse decisions. How do you know? You throw statements, and that's what I don't like about these. You got white privilege, you're racist, take a knee, all this stuff, and you can't argue it. How do I know I'm not racist? I'm white. I guess I'm, how do you prove it? Can't unprove it, I guess. I mean, because you're white. I love how we're fighting racism with racism. It's awesome. The people in charge of fixing flawed systems are the very people whom those systems benefit. But if you mention that strategy to Lowry now, having seen the industry underbelly and have seen all the concealed barriers it presents, he might cut you off. No, he says. It's so wrong. Many who've confronted these issues, who've gone into neglected communities, who've analyzed the barriers firsthand, now advocate for a fresh approach. Yeah, we need a new approach. Obviously, it hasn't worked. We need new approaches every freaking year until we figure it out, is my thoughts. Reading on. Rather than jam underprivileged kids into the pipeline, their solution is to create a different pipeline. Rather than bring the kids to soccer resources, the solution is to bring soccer resources to them. It starts on ground floors. Soccer, Foster Simeon points out, is a relatively low-cost sport when you pare it back into the basics. But so often, even some basics aren't present. An early 2000 NIH study found that 69.6% of black neighborhoods and 81.4% of Hispanic neighborhoods didn't have a single recreational facility. So Foster Simeon, U.S. Soccer Foundation, decided to build some. They've committed to funding 1,000 mini pitches or inner city courts that serve as soccer havens. They offer kids an introduction to the game that's so often elusive. I don't like where this is going because we have some of those pitches here, and they give them to Parks and Rec, which is stupid, by the way. And kids play it. I see it. And it's anyone can play it, which is the way it should be. And they create fields and then they leave. They don't create it where they actually can develop the young ones and actually create teams from their community to go battle the other communities that aren't accepting. That's the way you do it. We go pick a fight. I like that. Reading on, and rather than swoop in or dictate from afar, Foster Simeon says it's sort of like a collaborative effort. The foundation doesn't solve problems for inner city kids. It works with people who already know the inner cities, who intimately understand their challenges. It leverages existing infrastructures and trust. We identify community-based organizations, Foster Simeon says, and we provide them with the curriculum and training and other support that they need to be able to offer programming for kids. We give them the tools that they need to create access and opportunity. Well, giving it to Parks and Rec in Phoenix, Arizona is the stupidest thing you could do. Phoenix Parks and Rec, all Parks and Recs in Arizona anyways, fail miserably at the game of soccer. So badly, the city of Phoenix actually gave their rec program to SC Del Sol. And SC Del Sol took it for like a year, mainly for facilities, and then no, we're done, give it back. They never done well. Have never done well. They don't want to deal with it because there's no money involved. Basketball's done well. What is sport? Their swimming programs do well, but it's never been soccer. Never. I remember when I ran the Palm Valley Soccer League, through a new board of directors, and when I transitioned out the Palm Valley Soccer League, I left them with about 1,800 kids that played in our rec program from all over the West Valley of Phoenix. And they didn't want to deal with it because it was a lot of work. But it brought in $250,000 a year to the Palm Valley Soccer League. It was huge. And they gave it to the YMCA. And within 2 years, it was done. It didn't exist anymore. Takes a special kind of stupid to do it. YMCAs don't do it well. Boys and Girls Clubs don't do it well. Not here in Arizona. I don't know about anywhere else, but they gave it to what he's talking about, these six-a-side fields that they established through the soccer foundation. They gave it to the Parks and Recs of City of Phoenix. We'll see how they do. Not sure. Open Goal, meanwhile, brought all its efforts in-house. It launched its own inner-city club, which is completely free for players. It runs its own camps and clinics and nutritional programs and fitness training. The plan requires aggressive funding and networking. It may or may not be replicable across the country at scale. Lowry and Ledoux feel it's the only sustainable way forward. The system has to be there in their communities, Lowry says, of underserved kids, just like it's in everyone else's community. Over time, more and more black and brown players will push through the system or earn their way in from outside. More and more will attempt to reform it. I made it all the way to the other side, says MLS veteran Quincy Maraqua, a co-founder of the Black Players for Change Coalition. I understand how I was perceived the entire way. I understand how people spoke about me. I understand why they did the things they did and how they went about doing it, because that's how they maintain the system. No, shut up. I want details. From here on out, everyone that's going to throw these, this whole racial divide of this is how I was dealt with because I'm black or I'm whatever, and this is what it is. I get you go through things, but it has to stop. It has to stop. It's so easy. It's throw details. This is what they did. I want to know. I think it's economic. It's economic. So whether you're poor or you're rich, poor is all colors, including white. Let's not forget about them. Are they not going to get opportunity because they have the privilege of being poor and white? It is frustrating. Can I feel that way, or I'm not allowed to feel that way? I don't understand. Reading on. Let me go deeper. So now that I have the understanding, I can now relay the message back to those who may be in the middle of it, who might be going through it, or who have actually have the best intentions to address and fix it and update it for betterment of everybody else. That's good. Serve your community. I agree, but no excuses. Just serve it. But widespread reform is a gargantuan task. Barriers are fortified. The systems thus far has been monopolized by entities who say they can that we can only do it one way, Lowry says. That's true. I see that big time. Only we can do it. We're only ones to do the proper showcases. We're the only ones that can develop you to the next level. That's a lie. They destroy kids nonstop. You can only get to college one way. You can only be a professional one way. And yeah, exactly what I was saying. And it has to be through their academy system. And you have to do X, Y, and Z. That's all entrenched in the system. It's a systemic racism, right? No, it's not. It's a business plan. They're all trying to get as much money as they can so they can pay their bills. It's not about racism. It's about who has money and who has not. If the white people can't pay it, they can't do it either. That's the way it is. We're overreaching. You're like partially, it's like you're 75% correct and 25% so wrong. We overextend ourselves with our thinking and systemic racism, right? Watch. We got to stop using these same freaking trigger words, you freaking trigger happy people. Reading on. Precious understood very little about it when she first trekked out to the suburbia for practice a few years ago. The cultural and social economic divide, she remembers, sparked an awakening. She realized in years since that where a kid grew up and their financial situation could be a huge barrier on their sports career. It happens to everybody that is poor. But why, Precious wondered. Now a senior, her high school tasked her with finding a topic for her senior project, a research prompt to investigate throughout the year. Hers, she says, will be about why sports aren't diverse and how it affects people of color like me. Okay. Shoot. And where is she today? Division I scholarship, everything paid for, a chance to make it. We have to stop behaving this way. We cannot live in a society where, oh, I suffered, I overcame it, and I'm going to cry foul. How about you suffered, you're a refugee, you came to this country that gave you these opportunities. How about thank you? Freaking thank you. But we won't. We have to change our way of thinking, because if this is the way we're going to go versus, I deal with tough things all the time, and that's life, and I get through it. I mean, we just make up stuff. There's racism, yes, and it's clear. But then when you just throw words like systemic racism and, so black cops, they're part of a systemic racism institution. They're racist. I mean, we are going stupid. We are. We are clearly going stupid, and it's frustrating to watch that we cannot do anything that's different. We have to stop doing this. But we're not, because it's the cool thing to do. And if you're so brave to talk about systemic racism and the suffrage out there, you're so brave. You're not. You're a coward. You're a robot saying the same thing that everyone's telling you to say. And I'm Coach Cameron, and I agree with most of what I said. I'm not sure. I have to watch it again. But don't be offended. I'll see you guys next time.